back to the Fantasy Rugby Draft podcast. Thanks for downloading and listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson, and joining me again in the booth is the man primarily made of moss, Nathan Mossman. How are you, sir?
I think we're going to have to start today with a correction, an erratum, if you will, a mea culpa, an Eric Estrada, and that I'm sure you know what this is about. So, a couple of eagle-eared listeners did point out to us that the South African team's playing on a Friday night is actually not that uncommon. It's happened many times this season, which shows two things, I guess. The first thing is that the couple of listeners show that there's probably twice as many people listening as what I originally thought. And the other thing is that if you're wondering about how much effort we go into preparing for this, I think it probably tells you everything you need to know. A very brief look at the fixture list would have told us that. Neither of us did that, and yet I'm quite happy when you asked me that question to proffer the opinion that no, it has not happened this season. So
why let the facts get in the way of a good story, though?
Well, we've never done that. Now, why would we start now?
We'll break a habit of a lifetime.
Exactly. It's week 14. Come on.
And what is it? What is the animal that's keen of listening? So it's eagle-eyed if you've got good eyes. What is the keen ear?
I mean, dogs have got pretty good hearing.
A dog does. Elephants have got big ears, but I don't think that translates.
No, I don't think they particularly.
Actually, they might be weak in terms of area versus sound.
Yeah. I mean, as a sort of listening per surface area, quite poor, I would have thought.
We're recording this on Thursday, the 26th of May, so it's the last week that people can make that push for the playoffs. We're going to have a look at this week's free agent activity and have a look at the ads and the cuts and get Mossman to see if he can guess the top 5 ads and cuts. We're also going to discuss Team Naming Thursday, TNT, throw up a few names, maybe sitting on your bench, could be good games, good plays this game week. And finally, we're going to look ahead a little bit to the end of the season and look at the schedule that we've got going forward and what we're looking to do for the rest of this season and for next. A quick note about the reviews. Genuinely appreciate the new ones that are coming in. It does make a big difference for us. We're striving to bring you a better fantasy product every year. I'll tell you what though, it's interesting because it was the South African listeners aren't that they haven't left a lot of reviews versus some other areas like the UK. I think is actually a pretty big one, but the downloads is streets ahead of New Zealand, which I found really interesting. So a little bit of a shout out to anyone listening to New Zealand. There's a bit of a prod there. Introduce a friend or actually to the podcast, but also to FRD in general. They don't even have to be rugby fans. We've had plenty of mates, haven't we, mate, where just have no interest or minimal interest in rugby, end up loving the game and in turn rugby.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's funny how it happens like that. Usually you'd think it would start with, loving the sport, moving into fantasy, but it easily works the other way.
Well, it definitely worked the other way for me with the NFL. I vaguely had an idea of some of the players in the NFL.
Joe Montana.
yeah, Joe Namath. I was up with the play.
Yeah,
I knew.
Well, it's the same dress sense as Joe Namath, anyway.
That's right. Yeah, gotta love the fluffy trench coat. That's
brilliant.
Awesome. Anyway, so no, but I didn't really have any kind of in-depth knowledge. But you start playing fantasy, and immediately you just have to know, and you start getting into it. You know the players, and by the end of it, you know who the third choice running back is on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Just stuff that you have no right to know.
Yeah, that's right. I'm finding. I mean, I guess we're fairly vested into it, but you know who the starting front row the Kings are, and I imagine most of the commentators in Sky wouldn't know who those guys are. I'll tell you what though, it is interesting because typically what we see is that most folks dip their toes into kind of FRD via the public league. So they'll try an online draft first up because they don't really know, it's a pretty new concept. And that's a really great way to get yourself familiarised with the draft and understand the ins and outs, get a handle of the waiver wire, that type of thing. Because, as I say, it is just a brand new concept. Different concept's been around for a wee bit. But, and then seems to be what happens is that most folks get a grasp of it, and then the next season they get a bunch of their mates together, school them up on how FRD works, and then kind of create a private league, and then organise that offline draft. And I reckon that's the most fun to be had, is having that offline draft, get the squad around for a few lemonades, and go deep into the night drafting. we have touched on this before, actually. What for you makes a good offline draft for those who haven't conducted one yet?
I think having as many people in the room as possible, obviously.
Yeah, that's true.
We've had a few where people were kind of spread out and maybe they were joining in via Skype, and that's fine, but it's not quite the same.
No.
You don't get that. So, for instance, when we had a draft this year where somebody picked, I think it was Pollard or somebody in the first round, and there was that moment of silence where everyone else kind of looked at each other before cracking up laughing. And, you don't really get that.
No, that's right.
Skype.
Absolutely. A good spread is always a good start as well. So whether you just get taking some good, I think we've always talked about having some sort of loose chicken wing floating around somewhere with a good bit of buffalo sauce and blue cheese sauce somewhere. It's great fun, and it's also a really good time to dish out the punishments from previous years. So where maybe you've had some issues with trading, or maybe someone's, or you give a prize for being the last placed person in the league, or the sacco, if you will. And we saw some. We got sent some pretty good examples this year. There was some really good punishments dished out at folks' draft. Nappies and propeller hats strolling around an unnamed South African city was a really good example. You know who you are. All right, let's just have a quick look at the free agent activity this week. So, Mossman, can you name me the top 5 free agent ads for this week? And I'll tell you what, this was done. Well, actually, you guess first, and then we'll go from there.
The answer to that question is no, I can't. I think we know that I probably can't. Look, let me have a guess. Zach Guildford.
Number 3.
Okay. How about Segundo Taqele?
No, he's not there.
Segundo actually, I believe, means second.
It stands to reason, right?
In Spanish, so yeah, I mean, he knows his
he's
place.
The youngest.
He knows his place in the family, right?
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting. But no, there is someone on that team that is number 1.
Orlando?
No, it's Issa.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. He's streets ahead of anyone else as well in terms of pickups, and I'm guessing that's just a byproduct of playing the Kings.
Yeah, sure.
Manisi's number 2, Nick Green number 4, and Boffelli number 5. But the reason I almost stopped you before you had your first guess, I suspect that's completely blown out of the water now by Mr. Naiyaravoro.
I would have thought so, yeah.
And we'll get to him in a bit. But what are the top 5 cuts, do you think? And again, it's not big movements. They're not anywhere near what they were at the start of the season. So they're a little bit tricky.
Well, I mean, I would have thought the reverse of the Guildford thing was perhaps Reece Robinson.
You know, it's not. No, he's not in the top 10. He could be one of those players that's like the Tim Tebow, you just take him into your playoffs as like a good luck charm. Yeah.
No, I mean, what about, say, Curtis Browning or Jake McIntyre, somebody from the Reds?
Yeah, Campbell Magnay's down there.
Okay.
Carmichael Hunt's actually number 5.
Ah.
But Bryn Hall's number 1, Keatley Beale number 2, Paul Skoman number 3, Daniel Dupree is number 4, and number 5 is Carmichael Hunt. Yeah, really surprised to see Daniel's name there, just because...
He's a shark.
Yeah, that's right. I don't know. They got a bye this week, but I would have been doing a lot to kind of hold on to him, especially considering the news with Jed Holloway coming up. You really thin at star quality locks. All right, let's get into team naming Thursday.
And boom goes the dynamite.
So first up, Hurricanes Highlanders. A lot of the big guns are back for the Hurricanes after they've been slapped on the wrist with a wet bus ticket. Not too many surprises in that lineup. I guess Woodward is probably the only surprise. Marshall coming in for him, or moderate surprise. And the Highlanders are fairly settled. What do you make of this?
Not a whole lot to say, really.
There isn't.
No.
No, there really isn't. We got some questions from. Actually, we had a really good discussion on. It started off with a question from Andre Muller. And would you trade Fekitoa for Paul Jordaan? So this, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. It was a really good discussion, and it was with a few. I think Franco Duplessis was in there. Ed Pye was chiming in. There's a number of folks that weighed in, which is great. Where would you come down with that first before I proffer the various opinions of the folks?
Right. I mean, obviously, in terms of points scored for the season, they're very similar. Mm-hmm. I think they're the fifth and sixth option. So really, it comes down to form and it comes down to fixtures. Now, I think we can probably agree that Jordaan's got the better fixtures.
Yep.
He's also probably got the better form, I think, at the moment. I mean, not by a whole lot. Obviously, it's a little bit skewed by the 42 points from last week.
Yeah, it is.
And a lot of this is because of Fekitoa at 12.
That's right.
And that looks set to continue, doesn't it? Because let's face it, they're not going to drop fatters now.
No, he's the Barracuda this year. He's one of those players that gels a team together by the look of it.
Right. So I think for me, it's probably going to be Jordaan. I've really come around to the idea.
Yeah, it was. I actually didn't proffer an opinion. I just said it was really close. I think a lot of folks that were weighing in said there was no contest. It was Fekitoa, but admittedly that Jordaan 40 burner is massively skewing the results. But if you actually just look at Fekitoa's last 4 performances, they're not that good.
No.
And 2 of those I think were coming in at 12. I still struggle with it, but I probably would go Jordaan as well, but it's only just. And the other thing that kind of tipped it for me as well is that Fekitoa is probably going to be playing 3 test matches in June. And, I mean, who knows what happens when that, but we haven't seen Jamie Joseph do his classic, we're away at the Brumbies, dropping the whole team, all the studs this year yet. So I'm not saying that's going to happen in the first game back against the Kings, but I'm just saying that, you could get a few kilometres on the clock in that international window. Arwell Jones asks, what is Faddis' worth this week? Is it higher than Nanai, Viljoen?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Yeah, I think so.
Just because, not because obviously the matchup's not great, but it's not a matchup also that I'm scared of. I think there'll still be enough points in here. I mean, we've seen, say, Hurricanes Chiefs, for instance, which was down at the Cape Town. Plenty of points on offer, and I think this game will be the same.
Yep, I think so. Someone asked us straight up about Faddis versus someone and how he think would go. I'm not. Matt Proctor's a fairly good defender. I don't think he'll. Well, he's certainly. Well, I say this. He's not going to be coming up against Fonatia this week. Let's put it that way. Matt Proctor's a bit more of a competent one. So, in saying, I think also that Faddis will be better than Nanai and Viljoen. You're talking about third outside back territory, and it's only just then, really. Anything more from this match? We have a few questions later on, but we'll get to them later.
Nope.
Cool. Waratahs Chiefs. So this had a few little subtle changes. So David Horwitz has gone to the bench, and Rob Horn has come in at 12, and Zach Guilford's come onto the left wing for Reece Robinson. So the big change and the big news that came out today is Jed Holloway's out for what looks to be about 4 months with a shoulder injury. So that's devastating news for both him, Waratahs, Wallabies, and more importantly, fantasy rugby draft managers.
And I did see somebody asking the question about whether this was a recurrence of the same injury, and therefore, if it was, whether they've made a mistake here by bringing him back too soon.
Yeah, I think it might have been. I saw the article said he injured his shoulder again, but I don't know if it was the same shoulder. But saying the word again suggests that it may have been the same issue. Do you think that Michael Checkers had a quick chat to Gibbo and said, do you mind just putting Rob Horn at 12 for a game? Do you might want to try it out with Izzy?
Yeah, I don't know. Not personally, no, I don't really. Okay. I think that Gibbo's got enough problems to worry about.
I'm just wondering, because Checkers so close to that Waratahs team still, and they're looking to put probably Lealiafano on there, or do Karevi and Kurandrani in the midfield, which is a bit blockbuster. I just wonder if they wanted to get Horn a bit of game time at 12.
I wouldn't have thought that, but
okay.
Well, we don't know.
Sure, fair enough. Before I get into replacements for Jed, let's have a quick chat about the Chiefs team. So Chaz Ngatai again, a little bit worrying, right?
It is, but obviously he's got the break now, and I think he'll still be named in the All Black 32, but as they pointed out in the paper today, it's probably dented his hopes of taking the 12 jersey, which is a shame.
Yeah, it is a shame. I think he probably would have been he would have been in the squad. I think he probably wouldn't have been starting first game up, but yeah, that's relevant at this point. For fantasy rugby, I think it may be a good opportunity to trade for Charlie Ngatai if you've already made the playoffs. Someone may be desperate enough to get, maybe even just a straight swap, Anton Leonard-Brown or Tamanavalu for Chaz Ngatai, something like that. At least float it out, ask the question. A little note about Sean Stevenson for those that were holding on to him and hoping that he may make an appearance. I think he's been released for the under-20s. Did you read that?
I didn't know. So
yeah. So apparently he's no longer with the team, and that's why you've got Sam Varker on the bench. So let's actually start. Have you got? Are you a Holloway owner? I guess is the first question. In any of your leagues?
Yes.
You are. What are you doing?
I haven't really. I think actually I might have gone for Brodie Retallick.
Okay. Yep. No, that's fair.
Not because he's been putting up massive points, but if you look at it, he's sort of always between 5 and 10,
mm-hmm.
and that's actually. I mean, obviously it's no replacement for Holiday, but it's not bad.
No, that's okay, isn't it? I think obviously the names that potentially. Yeah, they're likely to be taken in your league are Kirsten Snyman and Blade Thompson, but I've seen a few of them dropping around on free agent lists here and there. And if you really want a deep, I think Retallick's not a bad one, as you say, he's a fairly solid performer. If you wanted deep pulls, then Tuipulotu is an option. There's a fella in the Lions, Locke, who's only just come on recently. He only got about 50 minutes in the last match, and it was a bit of an asterisk because they were putting up a thumping. But Erasmus is not bad, and Etienne Esterhausen as well for the Sharks. But again, those are really, really deep pulls, and if you're struggling, they could be week by week options. But yeah, I guess as well as Holloway, so there's been quite a bit of news over in Sydney, isn't there? The next bit of news was that Taqele Naiyaravoro is back. I guess firstly, what do you make of this? Are you assuming he's going to be playing those last 3 matches for the Waratahs after the international break?
Well, they're actually talking about him coming straight into the Wallabies. There was actually an article today that was suggesting that he's going to be available immediately for them. So if he's available to play there and he's getting that obviously elevated level of selection, you would have thought that he'd almost be a shoo-in for the Waratahs.
Yeah, I think so as well. I wonder if this selection in the Wallabies... Actually, by the way, I forgot to ask you at the top. I assume you were named in the squad of 420? Did you see that squad that was named this afternoon?
No, did they just name half
39 players.
Right, yeah.
Which is, 3 of the squads? No, look, I jest, but yeah, there was a lot of really interesting names on there. Mike Harris coming back, Scotty Kepu coming back as well. Haylett Petty was in there. Yep. Liam Gills actually made an appearance. But no, it was a big list. But so I wondered if this was just, okay, you're back in the system. Let's knock the Northern Hemisphere bulk that you may have gathered whilst you've been in Scotland with the haggis and the deep-fried Mars bars, and let's get you in shape. And then potentially use you for the Rugby Championship, or at least see how far we get into that England series before we can use it. Maybe he is going to be fit straight off the bat. Don't know. We've always seen it previously that players come north to south, that they carry a lot more size as opposed to the Southern Hemisphere kind of game.
Well, I mean, I think the short answer here is that you've probably got some 4th or 5th, maybe even 6th choice outside back on your bench who's not probably going to do a whole lot, and why would you not take a chance on this guy?
Exactly. So I've got a list here. Visaneer.
Oh, yeah.
Pulu?
Is Vicinere even? Is that still a thing?
No, no. Exactly. It's a shame he's got talent. Pulu? So while you think about that, the Waratahs fixtures after the international break are the Sunwolves away in Tokyo, 2:15 in the afternoon kick-off, so that'll be hear 'em, scare 'em.
Wait, did you say 2:15?
Yep.
In that case, no.
You much prefer a 2 o'clock kick-off?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, I know. They like their round numbers.
Well, it's you start to feel a bit tired in the afternoons. It's normal.
You do. Canes at home is the second leg of your semi-final, and the Blues away in the final. So apart from the Canes at home, they'll be a bit tricky, but I suspect will probably have some points in it as well. So
yeah,
it's a fairly tasty lineup for the Waratahs. Not too bad.
Yeah, it's actually okay. Yeah, It's all right. So with the Pulu thing, I guess in some ways it depends if Pulu if you had him you're intending him to be a starter. Yeah, exactly.
I think most people are, actually, to be fair.
Mm.
Most people have Pulu starting as their third outside back.
I know it's funny that you say that because there was a team where I picked Naiyaravoro up this afternoon. That team also had Pulu, but I found somebody else to drop. And most teams, I think, probably would. Because you tend to find that outside backs are the ones that are sitting on the bench. Most people stockpile 2 or 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I agree. What about Haylett Petty?
I mean, I think the same reasoning applies that whether or not he'd be a starter, but just in the absence of anything else, I think I'd go for Naiyaravoro.
What about one of your stashes, Mvovo?
Yeah, I think, he is a stash. But I think it'd be probably worth that chance as well, because, and Bobo's basically a gamble at any time as well.
Yeah, for those that are new to Naiyaravoro, previously he didn't get many touches of the oval ball, but he racked up a lot of points doing it. He was one of those players that his points per touch was just ridiculous.
He will literally run through 3 players in the space of 5 to 10 metres.
Yeah, and he'll look slow doing it.
Oh, he'll look ridiculously slow.
but no one can get close to him. He's like a poor man's Nadolo, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, anything more from this match? And we were talking about Waratahs Chiefs, we've got a bit of a
there. No, I guess there isn't particularly. I guess we'll be looking at conditions, as we seem to more and more often as we get deeper into the season, and they seem to play a part.
Yep, I looked at that. Sydney looked good. Looks bad on Saturday, so Friday night should be okay.
Excellent.
Kings Hawaris. There's a few changes for the Kings. Merritt Tuli's back, and Louis Fouché takes over as fly half. For the Hawaris, there was a mad rush to get second Tuchelet into the team this morning when he was named. And Sonny Bill Creevy comes back at hooker. We had a couple of questions from folks. One from Anonymous. Orlando or John Martin Hernandez?
I'd say Orlando.
Do you reckon?
Yep.
Just because he's playing on the wing?
Yeah, just because he's playing on the wing. Hernandez hasn't actually put up a whole lot of points. He's only got sort of 30-odd for the season, and he doesn't do that much.
I know. I just wondered if this was the John Martin match, that because of the opposition, that he got a little bit more confidence and he tried all of his tricks, behind the back, the skip passes, the chip and chase, those types of things.
Yeah, maybe, but even then that doesn't necessarily translate to fantasy points either, because he often plays quite close to the ruck in the first receiver kind of role anyway. So, unless it's a pass to somebody close in to score, or like you say, bounce from a chip kick, he's not going to run and create something so much.
No, and I want to put like a bet on this, but I just realised that I'm on the side of John Martin, and I just can't do it. I just, he colours to what you want, and that's just not going to happen. Anonymous number 2 asks Venter, Carpenter, and Boffelli. So rank those guys this week.
Boffelli will be number 1.
Yep.
Is this Francois Venter?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I'd probably still stick with him. Not that I'm expecting massive things, but I just wonder about the Sunwolves in this Brumbies game, whether they'll get a lot of ball to play with and be able to do much with it. That's all.
Mm-hmm. I might go the other way around on those two, just based on Stormers versus Brumbies, but yeah, it's close. Either way, it's spot value at 1. Anything more you want to discuss from this match? I think this is probably a match you want to target a few players if you're looking for 1 week winners to get into the playoffs.
Definitely. I think there'll still be points for the Kings.
Yeah, there will be.
It's just difficult to know where they're going to come from necessarily. Mm-hmm. I mean, Fisher will probably be all right. I think probably the front row will be perhaps the most likely candidate in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, we have a question about Louis Fisher later, but we'll wait till we cover it off the rest of the teams. All right, Blues Crusaders. For Blues, and the big selection dilemma is George Moala's been bracketed with Mali Sao at centre, which doesn't do anyone any favours. And Tenrau Latimer hasn't made it. Sakara Perai's in there again. Stephen Luatua and Kaino is the back three. For the Crusaders, it's a fairly settled lineup. Ndolo comes back on the left wing. Crotty is at 12 and Fonater is at 13. And I think Sam Whitelock's the only change really in that pack from the starting against the Waratahs, and Scott Barrett comes in. So we had a question from Justin Pivus. Second, Tuchelet, Manisi, Moala, or Naivalu. So rank those guys.
Right. Well, I like Naivalu this week.
Yep.
I think this is quite a good matchup for the Rebels.
Yep.
I guess it's probably number 2. Number 2 at number 2, actually.
Number 2 at number 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Gotcha.
And I think it would be Moala if it wasn't for the bracketing.
Yeah, I think so as well. Lions playing Bulls and we actually haven't seen a team yet, but yeah, it's at Loftus, but I don't expect that to make too much of a difference for the Lions. I think they'll play the same way. Good track.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, missing Yankees will come to that one as well, I guess.
That's a good point. No, that's a fair point. That's probably a bit of a knock. No, that's a good call. Yeah, so either way, you can't take any risks with Moala if you're trying to make that playoffs. Unless we get news tomorrow that he's been, well, actually, even if he is still bracketed going in tomorrow, I wouldn't take the risk. And we've heard it's good news. I still wouldn't take the risk. Anything more from this match, mate?
Rain forecast in Auckland.
Yeah.
I mean, let's face it, it's been raining pretty much for 2 weeks now.
Yeah,
but they are, I mean, if you believe the forecast, they're saying that's the heavy rain and gusty winds, although they're potentially easing later on. This is coming more into a weather forecast.
Just to the shipping forecast.
So I
Rain
think
moving in from the west, 40 knots.
Yeah. Bring head to Cape Colville.
Jono growth.
Yeah. So that would, to me, would be kind of a downtick for Blues players, but not so much for Crusaders players.
No, it may help.
Yeah.
It may help. They played really well in it last week, and that was biblical down in Christchurch. All right, Brumbies Sunwolves then. We haven't seen either team, have we?
No, we haven't yet, but
recording this at 7:30, just by the way. 7:30 on Thursday night.
But this is pick all your Brumbies though for sure.
Think so. Yeah, I think so. So Clive Stevenson asks us, pick 3 out of Yamada. So you need a pen and paper here. Yamada, Dargaville, Coleman, Combrink, Faddis, Callaway. So you can take Combrink as 1 and move that out.
That's right. Yeah.
So the next one, so your number 2 is probably between Yamada, Faddis, and Callaway.
You don't like Coleman?
What you talking about, Willis?
I do think it's a case of starting all your Brumbies.
Really?
I do.
So you're going Dargaville, Coleman, Combrink?
I think I would, yeah.
Not Yamada, Fellas, or Callaway?
No,
This is definitely a bet then. Let me just get the abacus out and figure out what we've got.
How exactly that would work.
I'm just wondering what my mortgage is up to at the moment and how's that geared.
Look, it's not like I think that they're anything special as players, but if you're just looking at it and saying who's the most likely to just blow up, it's got to be one of those guys, you know.
Dargaville or Coleman.
Yeah, I mean, I would have thought that. Okay. If you ask me who's the most likely to score a hat-trick out of these guys, I would have thought it was one of those two.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. So do you want to pick one, or do you say either one of those, and I'll pick Yamada?
So if I had to, it's a little bit difficult without having seen the team and know where they're going to play.
No, that's true. That's true. And to be fair, actually, what's liable to happen is that it'll be one of them starting.
That's right.
I don't think both of them will be starting. I think one of them will be either in the midfield.
So they're competing for that 12 shirt.
So.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, I will take...
Whoever's that 12, then.
I'll take whichever one of them starts, assuming that's what happens. I'd take them over Yamada.
Over Yamada? Cool.
Yep.
All right, sweet, done. Next one he asks around Todd or Butler. This is stretching your Start All Brumbies quote. I like it.
It is making me think.
You're asking all the deep questions.
Okay, start all your Brumbies except for the Fekitoa. No,
Curtis Browning, how did he go against the Sunwolves last week?
Yeah, that's right. But that was Curtis Browning, though. I mean, come on.
That's true. Yeah, was he named in the 45? Yeah.
He's probably like vice captain in charge of something. You know, like they give everybody a position.
I actually think he got engaged this week. I saw on Twitter, so he's certainly a captain or something.
Congratulations, Curtis.
Nicely done.
So, Todd.
Yeah, I think it's Todd as well, right? I mean, you saw what he did in that first 5 minutes against the Waratahs. Butler should be okay, though.
Yep, he'll be okay.
All right. Was there anything more from this game in terms of injuries, sans a team?
Haven't heard any injury news from the Brumbies.
No, that's right.
Haven't heard anything from Sunwolves either. I think they'll be relatively the same kind of teams as last times, and I think it's the players where we've briefly touched on, like the Villiewans and the Carpenters. These are the guys that you're going to wonder about when you're looking at this matchup and thinking, are they going to get towelled and they're going to get nothing out of it? Or is it a case, as we've quite often seen with the Sunwolves, where they have a period during the match and it might only be 10 minutes, 15, 20, and that's enough to get them something?
And I think that's what I don't think they're going to get shut out. That hasn't happened for a while. I think they are making the right strides. There's some good players in that team. That Derek Carpenter try, where Tusapisi did that last switch at the end, just glorious to watch. Just great try. I think there's points in this, but it is exactly that. It's that 20-minute spurt that they have where Tusapisi and Carpenter just seem to gel, and Duratalo seems to pick up with them, and Yamada seems to fall on the end of them.
The flip side to that is that we've noticed teams coming back from the bye generally performing pretty well, and that's the case for the Brumbies here. They haven't been great, and I think they'll be looking at it, and they probably had a few things to work on. I think they'll go well. I think the Brumbies front row will come up huge in this game.
That's right. Now, they were floating around on the waiver wire for a bit. A few folks had forgotten how good they are, I think. I think it was also the bit of the off-field stuff seems to have died down a lot. They've solidified the front office, named a new CEO, so I think they feel as though they're actually moving in the right direction and put the whole Michael Jones affair behind them, certainly from a playing perspective and from a playing group perspective. All right, Bulls lines. Not a hell of a lot of change for the Bulls team. We haven't got a Lions team yet. We'll get on to their injury worries at the moment. But I wanted to talk about Warrwick Gelant. So last week we heard that he was very close to playing. He pulled up on a niggle, they said, on Monday, didn't they? Now, they didn't explain what that niggle was, did they?
No, we didn't hear anything.
Sounded a bit odd to me that... Because he was done for, his jaw broke in 1,000 places. And I wondered... It just seems strange that a leg muscle injury or something pulled out on Monday. It just seemed a little bit at cross purposes to what his original injury was. And I wondered, because there is strong links with him going to the Rome Sevens as well, and also potentially go and play for the BlitzBokkers in Rio. Now, I'm not 100% convinced that'll happen, but there is something amiss here. But when we posted the team news for the Bulls this week, we said, look, if you can trade for Gelant now, do, because there's so much uncertainty that you may be able to give up someone like those players that we're talking about. You know, if there's a fourth or fifth outside back or sixth outside back sitting on your bench, then Warrwick Gelant is a match winner. And just like Paul Jordaan and just like Warrwick Gelant, they are match winners. And consistency gets you to the playoffs. Match winners gets you a championship. So, did you hear much more about why Gelant was left out this week?
Haven't heard anything at all. And
definitely silent, right?
Yeah, gone searching for news, haven't found anything. But we're talking about, now we're talking about a game which is 4 weeks away, probably. So there's nothing to really worry about. It's because he is just going to be a stash.
Do you think that the Springbok coach may have picked up a phone to him and said, are you sure you want to go and play and get a gold medal at Rio? And there's another competition, there's another byproduct of that, is he good enough to play? Because we've seen it with, I know Jared Hayne's not a very good example, but we've seen it with guys that have tried to come in and play sevens that haven't been playing with the team, and they just look so far off the pace.
Quade Cooper.
Goodness gracious. There's a number of examples. And look, Warrwick Gelant looks perfectly suited to the game, but a lot of players look perfectly suited to the game, and then they get into that one-on-one cleaner, and it's not for everybody.
Yeah, it's probably a case maybe as well where that it's almost too late, I think, now for some of these guys to try and come in and it's a different. The other thing is it's a very different set of conditioning that you need to do. So chances are he's probably coming in too heavy. Because that literally you will have to lose probably, somewhere in the range of 5 to 10 kgs probably. And that's not a joke. Like, I mean, I remember that happening with, remember Rico Gear doing it, where he came back from the sevens to play 15s, and he had to hit the gym and bulk up because he wasn't big enough.
Yeah.
They're two different sports.
Yeah, they're absolutely true. Onto the Lions. So I know you own Elton Jantjies, in one of your leagues. What have you done? How have you covered that loss, and what do you think the outlook is for him?
I've picked up Boshoff because for me he's obviously a known quantity, was really good in fantasy 2 seasons ago. He is on the outer. We know that he may have fallen out with management. He's definitely not in favour. He didn't get taken away on the tour. He hasn't been on the bench. Obviously with Van der Veld injured, that opens the door up a little wider for him. The thing that I've read is they're saying that there's Boshoff and there's 2 other guys who are young guys, all of whom have been playing in the Currie Cup, and they are going to choose between one of them. Now, would you stick one of these youngsters into a game like this, which it's going to be a cauldron, right? I mean, it's in Pretoria, for God's sake. So that to me just seems like quite a big risk. That's not to say that they won't do it, but I just look at it and think, why would you not pick a ready-made replacement like Boshoff and stick him in there?
By the time, I think that's a great call. By the time you're listening to this podcast, you'll know who that fly half is. But for me, it sounds as though it's just a 1 week proposition anyway. It sounds as though it may actually have inadvertently done Yankees a bit of a favour, in that he won't play in the June tests for the Springboks, and he'll be fresh coming back for that first game back, which is a significant game against the Sharks, and that's going to be such a pivotal match for them to understand who sits on top of their group. So I actually think it may do a favour. It won't do anyone a favour who's trying to get into the playoffs right now, who hasn't already qualified. You're going to have to react and make some room for whoever that fly-half is. Hopefully it is Boshoff. I heard stories read an article that Ross Cronje was in the mix as well, but I don't really know his pedigree at fly-half. I think it was just a byproduct of the bench makeup, to be honest.
Yeah, I think my understanding is his pedigree is non-existent, pretty much. So I read something. It was actually a quote from Ackerman who said, "We're choosing between these 3. Cronje wasn't one of them." So,
sure. Okay, cool.
And just to be clear, like, I'm not talking about Boshoff as anything more than just a 1 week proposition. The league where I've got Yankees. I just need somebody for this week, and it's either going to be, say, Boshoff or Fred Zelinga, right? And I'm thinking, I still think Fred Zelinga is probably, Boshoff is probably a better option if he gets picked, obviously.
And you don't know, right? This is what we're hearing about Yankees. It's 4 weeks, but you're in the playoffs. You can't take the risk of coming into that first game against the Sharks, or even the second, and finding out that his injury is a little bit longer. You've got to get that handcuff, and Boshoff, or whoever that fly half is going to be named, is a good call. We have a question from Connaught Man. He wants to know, so pick 3 of this bunch. Got your pen and paper? Patrick Osborne, Yalingo, Skosan, Pulu, and Dargaville. So drop 1.
I'm definitely going to take Osborne and Pulu, and then I've kind of nailed my
drop 2. Sorry, my math is just turned terrible. I was too busy adding up my mortgage and figuring out how many years I've got to pay that off.
So I've nailed my colours to the Dargaville mast a little bit, so I guess I'm going to have to stick with that.
Yeah, let's say obviously provided he starts.
If he provided he starts, yeah, that's right. And then in that case, it would be Yalingo and Skosan that I was benching. If it was just between Yalingo and Skosan, that's kind of interesting too. In that case, I might bench Yalingo. It's a tough one, but there's generally, obviously, there's more points in the Lions as a general rule, but then Bulls at home, kind of balances each other out. I think I might still just stick with Skosan.
Yeah, I was Osborne, Skosan, Pulu is my 3. Okay, he has another one as well, so pick 2 from Squire, Tafua, and Reid. Now, I think this is in the knowledge that Squire's starting from the bench.
Is Squire on the bench, is he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I guess it makes it a lot easier, doesn't it?
It does for me, but I guess he's pointing to, Squire came on and scored that try against the Crusaders in his, the last run out that they had.
He still is, or appears to be, the person most likely to score a try out of the loose trio for the Highlanders, just based on the way that they're playing. But Reid's actually been pretty good, and Tafua has been outstanding. So for me, they just sort of picked themselves.
No, I agree. I went that way as well. And it is just simply because of the starting. I'd prefer a guy starting. I know Liam Squire's got impact, and we talked about Akira Ioane earlier on in the season, and he usually picked up quite a few points and had a bigger upside. I think that's going to be a bit of an arm wrestle as well. It's a New Zealand derby, so it's one of those bend but don't break type games coming up. All right, anything more from this match?
No, not in the absence of a Lions team.
So how much of a down tick are you giving the rest of the Lions players because of the missing Yankees away from home?
It's probably.
I didn't think Boshoff was bad, right?
Oh no, Boshoff's a good player.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, but at the same time, you do kind of wonder if he's just coming back into the team. Not that I think he'll play badly, but I wonder if he'll be bit greedy, which might make him a good fantasy option. But he's probably he's not as much of a runner, perhaps not as much of a creator as Yankees is, but he might be the ideal guy for a game like this.
True.
In some ways, I really don't know, because it's that local derby thing happening as well. So there's a lot.
We should probably point out though. Just sorry to interrupt, but. Is it Mahuza, the fullback, the young kid that came on that played well last week? So Jaco van der Waldt's also out for 6 weeks, and I think that's who Ackerman would have gone to first up. But because he's out now as well, there's a spot at fullback that's going, as well as Yankees at fly half. So, just to go back to, because Boshoff was filling at 15 for a while as well at one point. What do you make of Mahuza then? I assume he's probably going to be the guy starting at 15.
Was he listed in fantasy?
Yeah, he's an outside back.
He's an outside back. Okay, well then, he obviously has some value. He'll be similar to what Van der Walt was, which was pretty okay, I think. It wasn't somebody, because he was playing in that position, he wasn't somebody that we looked at very much. Because you're obviously going to go for somebody else at fly half, but just a quick look.
He came on. He came on for about would have been whenever Yankees went down. Vanderbilt went down, and he scored 15 points. And I got about the eyeball test. He looked really good.
Yeah, we're just looking back over his scores. Actually, they're not bad.
Yeah, I haven't seen his others what he did previously, but I actually remember. I'm looking at his box score now as well, and there's only one defender beaten there. But I remember him. He's got some pace. He's shifty. He looks good. He looks the spitting image of Skosan. He's gone to the same hairdresser. Sweet hairdresser. But yeah, at times I couldn't. They both got the cornrows. It was really difficult to see when they're cleaning out. They're obviously flat together or something like that. But no, he looks okay. So I have picked him up in a couple of my leagues just on the chance that he may be the outside back or the fullback for the Lions going forward.
I'd just the other probably last thing to say. You just wonder if they do chuck in one of these young fly halves, what that would mean potentially for Combring, maybe taking goal kicks.
Oh yeah,
we don't know, but I'd say if it's Boshoff, you'd assume that Boshoff would take the kicks.
Think so. Yep, think so.
But if it's one of the others, you never know. I mean, not that it's going to play any kind of real factor, because let's face it, if you've got Combring, you're starting Combring, regardless of whether he's taking kicks or not. So it's kind of
exactly
a bit of a non-factor.
All right, Stormers Cheetahs. Again, no team sheets here. Any significant injuries for either team? Don't think so. Alex Greenleaf asks, Grant, Zalinga or Fouché for this game week?
Yeah, and this is a good one because it's the kind of thing that if you are looking to replace Yankees, you could be, chuck Boshoff in there, but let's say Boshoff doesn't make it. These are the kind of guys you're talking about. So Force Rebels, we know that the Force that Luke Burton is out. We know that Ian Pryor's out. So we're automatically assuming John O'Lance is still out, and we've heard absolutely nothing about John O'Lance. He's in the Naivalu Triangle at the moment, but Peter Grant, we're assuming will probably start, so that's fine. I guess it's almost leaning towards Fouché.
Yeah, that's where I went as well, unfortunately.
What if Boshoff was in this mix and he was starting?
It's so hard to know what type of form he's in. Just haven't been paying attention at all to Curry. I really might lean towards that Kings game. I looked at the weather forecast. It looks sunny. And we're not talking about Saturday night New Zealand time, Sunday morning. We're talking about Friday night, Saturday morning. So the weather forecast is a bit more of an exact science there. Don't know. I might lean towards Fouché there. He's just the right type of greedy to be good in this type of game.
Yeah, and the Kings will score a few, I would have thought.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so as well. So just on that, so Luke Burton is injured, is he? Is he out? I didn't pick that up.
Yeah. Okay. I read that Pryor and Burton were both out.
Yeah, I've just brought that up as well. I know you're spot on. There's obviously Matt Hodgins has out as well, but okay. Yeah, that does put the cat amongst the pigeons. And maybe Grant does have to be called back from his Pro-Am duties. So yeah, I'd probably put Boshoff just behind Fouché there. I mean, we've always said Zalinga looks pretty good when he starts, but that's a tough matchup.
It is a tough matchup, yeah.
And Stormers in Cape Town, it doesn't get a hell of a lot. Now, that's not to say the Stormers have been lights out at all. It's just that they grind down a lot of folks, and you're going to see a lot of Peter Steph Toy and Edsbeth running at you. Yamis Preston asks, and by the way, I appreciate the Yamis. It's a bit like Rodriguez and Hunter. So bench one, Nadolo, Rule, or Skosan.
Did you say Nadolo?
I did. Just to see if you're awake.
Sure. Rule.
Yep, that's what I said. I don't think it's close either.
No.
Yeah. Anything more from this match?
No team sheets, so no. And no.
No.
And no. Just probably not really keen on too many players in this match.
No. In summary, no.
Yeah.
Force Rebels, for me, How is this game not the Star Wars Bowl or something less copyright infringy? This is awesome. Force Rebels.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's awesome.
Gotta be, right?
Yeah, that's brilliant. And
I haven't seen that anywhere. I was writing it down. I was like, this is incredible.
it just seems obvious when you say that.
Yeah, get George Luce involved, get him front row seats. Yeah, absolutely. There's been a few more rumours, or the similar rumours, from the Gaga folks around changes to the Rebels. I guess it's going to be one of those games which is, because it's 6 o'clock on Sunday in Australia, in New Zealand, or I think it's about 2 o'clock kickoff, 3 o'clock kickoff in Perth. Where is it, Melbourne or Perth?
This is in Melbourne.
Oh, it's in Melbourne. Okay, so yeah, only 3 hours behind. So you're only going to know the team news tomorrow, about an hour or half an hour before the game week lock. So you're going to have to be very, very active and just make sure that you read those news and follow us on Twitter and Facebook, and make sure you've got those notifications turned on, because we'll post those news as soon as we get it. And also, before we get into the match, how awesome that it's a Sunday afternoon match, so everybody's going to be able to watch it live, and it's the last match before making the semi-finals. There's going to be a lot of folks that are just looking at this Force Rebels match for points to try and get them over the line.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, we had one on a Sunday going back a few weeks ago. I think it was Sharks, Jags or something. And there was
we don't look at fixtures, carry on.
Yeah, that's right. But there was a boatload of points scored, and people's matchups were just seesawing, and it was awesome.
It was great. And I tell you what, another wee insight into the future, looking at the fixtures, the final is the same. So it's because the Jags are at home. So the final, everybody's going to be able to watch it live.
Nice.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Anonymous asks us, whilst the lack of team is out there, Adam Thompson, Colby Fainga, Kyle Brink. Rank those guys.
Adam Thompson. I think I'll go for both Rebels players. I like the Rebels here.
I
like them for a couple of reasons. Obviously, they're at home. The Force are terrible. The Force also read an article about some of the off-field stuff, and Albie Mathewson commenting on the fact that they're getting bought out by the Australian Rugby Union, or they're coming in to take control because of their financial difficulties, and what that means is all the players are off contract and there's a lot of uncertainty, and it's obviously something that is actually in the players' minds because they're talking about it in the press. So that kind of thing, and you hear it, I mean, we saw how some of that stuff affected the Brumbies, or we suspect that it affected the Brumbies. That's not what you need when you are the Force and you're playing away from home. Rebels trying to stay in the hunt in the Aussie Conference. This to me looks like, quite a big Rebels win potentially.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll tell you what, the biggest shock out of everything you just said there is you've taken up reading. When did this happen?
Yeah. Oh well, Albie Mathewson's taken up thinking about stuff. So.
He's actually quite vocal on a lot of the NFL stuff. He obviously plays quite a bit of fantasy as well. He's keenly watching both Game of Thrones and the live draft. It was quite good. The Rebels had a bit of a tough matchup last week against the Chiefs, and I think they will definitely be wanting to get back on the ride. This does have points for the Rebels written all over it. So, kind of digging a little bit deeper, B. Wilkinson asks, Leo Zass against the Cheetahs or Tom English against the Force?
I like Tom English in this one.
He is handsome. I'm sorry, what did you say? Oh, rugby, sure. So I actually went Zass. So you think English?
I do. Yep, I'll take that bet.
Yeah, okay. Sounds like I've walked into that one. So I lose my fantasy matchup as well as losing cash. I got a lot riding on you, Leo. Okay, anything more from this match? Hopefully the turf stays together. Yeah,
so you mentioned the Green and Gold Rugby podcast. They were talking about changes. Anything specific around changes for the Rebels?
They were, again, talking about a little bit worried about Debrashini, potentially Harris coming in.
Okay.
We've talked about that before.
Yeah, and
Placid's presence on the bench, maybe.
Sure. Okay. I mean, I think for most people that is not really an issue, because I think as soon as Debrashini lost the kicking duties, he probably just immediately disappeared from a lot of fantasy teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And it is also... Yeah, I kind of believe a little bit in conspiracy theories. I talked about Rob Horne and how he's now playing 12 when the Wallabies have a lack of 12s at the moment, and I suspect maybe something similar happened with Mike Harris. He's in the squad for the Wallabies, and I just wonder if, he plays that left and right. He certainly does that from phase play anyway, and he doesn't stick at fullback, so I wonder if there's a little bit of something to that as well. Okay, so that's probably the wrap up from here. There's a lot of folks asking about how the semi-finals work. So the top 4 go through, let me rephrase that. The top in each conference goes through, and then the next 2 best records. And the number 1 overall plays the lowest qualifier, so the lowest wild card, and then the other match is between the other 2. You have a 2-week semi-final, so it's over 2 Super Rugby weekends, and they are aggregated, and your total is matched against each other, and then it goes through to the final. It gives those managers who have had a really good season the chance to have a bit of a shocker. Actually, it gives both teams the chance to have a bit of a shocker and recoup and try and still make that push in that second game week. For teams that don't actually make the semi-finals, or the playoffs at least, their team is locked and they won't be able to add, cut or trade players after the league table's updated, or actually after the lock happens. Those that are in the playoffs still can trade between yourselves, and also can obviously pick up players and cut players. How do you feel about, because it is a bit of a silly season at the moment with trades going on with folks that don't have anything to play for, and a lot of leagues aren't keeper leagues at this stage. So we've seen it a bit in our leagues. Where do you come down on that?
I'm a little bit torn, because I do sort of think that, say myself for instance, like I'll keep playing right up until the end, because as we mentioned a couple of weeks ago, there is that overall winning percentage. So, every game kind of matters. It all counts towards your overall record, and you want to work towards that. And so in some ways, I'm quite happy to sort of trade up until the end. I did actually have somebody ask me this who'd offered a trade, and I said to them, look, I don't think it's unethical unless it's, really lopsided, or I'm just doing it because I don't really care. But, you get to a point where I'm saying, well, sure, I've got Karevi on a bye, right? But I don't think that I should really be swapping him for just anybody just to play, because I didn't feel like it was fair on the rest of the league.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's kind of like a little bit of just your sort of own personal code, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with that. I'm all for, fantasy's a fairly short life anyway, and whether you've made the playoffs or not, you've still got some rivalries in your league. I do believe in that, but at the same time, and I think 90%, 95% of trades that go through are okay with folks that are out of the league, but I know we've been getting a lot of questions about folks that are just organ donors, for want of a better phrase. And it's very hard to mandate. That's where those punishments and the offline draft comes in handy. Repeat offenders. And in most of the other leagues and fantasy formats we play, there's trade deadlines, isn't there? So about 3 weeks before or 4 weeks before the playoffs, there's a trade deadline, so you can't actually trade between each other. And that seems to work quite well. But yeah, I am betwixt in between, because I do like the idea of playing and allowing you to manage your team all the way up to the finals. So the schedule for the next few weeks, so we'll have our podcast on Sunday or Monday, a review of Game Week 14. Then we're all going to head into the FRD bunker for a few weeks. See if we can't crack out a draft product for the Aviva Premiership in the Northern Hemisphere, which is very exciting. A little bit reliant on a few factors first, mostly important is the fixtures. It's the start of July, but keep an eye out for that, those in the Northern Hemisphere that love the Aviva and want to play that. And I think the next podcast that we'll be putting out after the Game Week 14 review is the Thursday of semi-final Game Week 1. A little bit of admin. You can follow us on Twitter at Fantasy Rug Draft. That's Fantasy RUG Draft. Or send us a note at support@fantasyrugbydraft.com. Mossman's on at Nathan Mossman. Keep the reviews coming through. As I said at the top, marvellous to see. Really, really does help us out, and it just doesn't take long to go onto iTunes and put a little comment in there. I'm talking to you, New Zealand folks. That's about all the time we have for today. Thanks for downloading and listening. I'm Bruce Wilkinson. He's Nathan Mossman.
Friday Night Lights.
Help to your Repeto.
What a bust here by Christian Cullen. Plenty of support, and what a dummy!